All right. Welcome to the Adaptive Journey podcast. I'm Albert Wolfe. I'm the guy in China, our head writer and executive coach at Adaptive Leaders.
And I'm Whitney in Los Angeles, California, and excited to be on this side of the ocean. Used to live in Beijing, so I miss the other side. Miss being a little closer to Albert.
It sounded like you almost said you're still in Beijing just then.
I know. It's still in my heart. It's still in my heart. I'm also glad to be here. Yeah, enjoy. And I love the perspective that we can have, being people who know both places and have been involved and engaged in both places. Secret to anybody who does not know Albert is that his Chinese is crazy good.
Well, it's in China, you have to deflect all compliments. So I'll say it's not as good as it should be.
There you go. Well, we can all say that.
Yeah, that's a separate topic. How to deal with the Chinese etiquette and everything. That could be another show.
Oh,
So
yeah.
so what are we talking about today, JD?
We're talking about accountability, Albert, and we're talking about the accountability gap. So I think that's an interesting way to frame it. And last time I shared a lot in stories and different experiences that we've had, but I'd actually like to lean on you a little bit today and say, I know there's a reason for every one of these articles that you write, and there's an article from our blog. We'll link it somewhere around. And what led you to write this particular one?
So accountability has always been one of the four pillars of the performance leadership model that we've been doing for years and years. It's the title of our first book, Performance Leadership. And it is, for those of you watching the video, JD just pointed to it behind his shoulder there on the bookshelf. So it's the four pieces of performance leadership are the EMMA model, EMMA, expectations, motivations, measurements, and accountability is the last one. And consistently, when we do performance leadership work with teams, we'll just sort of casually ask, or maybe we'll formally ask, which of these are you most excited about? And accountability consistently gets the most attention. I would say motivation's probably second, but every leader has this sense like we need to be better at accountability, and we need to. Oftentimes they're looking below them to their teams. Like, I wish my people would just be better at more accountability. But what's really funny, and I think this is probably what happened when I wrote the article. When we work with teams, we'll ask a vague question. We'll say, "Hey, fill in the blank organization, whatever organization we're working with. How good are we here at this company at accountability? Scale of 1 to 5. Let's just put it up there." And we do an anonymous thing. We do a fun, it's in the room, it's on the screen. Everybody, there's 20, 30 people in the room sometimes. And you watch the little slider bounce around, and the average is consistently below 3 on a scale of 1 to 5. Where people are saying, we at this organization, at this company, we're actually not that good at accountability. And so I was probably just coming off of one of those, and I thought, this is worth writing.
Yeah. A facilitator tip for anybody in the room. One of the reasons why 1 through 5 is so great also is you can put that up with your fingers. Most people can put that up with their fingers. And one hand up in the air, 1 through 5. And it's a really easy way to get a grasp of the room. You do it a little bit like rock, paper, scissors, like everybody. Here we go on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, and everybody put up their number, and it gives you a chance to see. And I would just even say, if you're asking, this is going a little bit deep in this direction, but if you're asking your team about accountability and you're asking them to rate like that, and everybody gets super squirmy, you don't actually need them to put their fingers up. It's already telling you something that,
Yeah,
hey, maybe this is something we need to talk about. I want to go to something in the article that you mentioned is like, people might have questions even before they, you ask that question, like people might have questions about what are they going to put up on their hands, like about even definitions. Can you say a little bit more about that, Albert?
Yeah, we will run into wait. Before I answer this, what do you mean by accountability, right? There's certain personality types and it's a fair question, and we just hit the ping pong ball back as fast as possible. Say it's a deliberately vague question do with it what you want. And I guess this is another tip for any leaders out there who are listening. It doesn't matter if you manage a team of 3 people, at a back office somewhere, or if you're managing a team of, 70. You can ask this question and get some very important information. And the most important reason for asking this question to your team, we're obviously happy to come in and ask it too, but you could ask it today to your team. The most important reason to ask it is to show that you are paying attention to accountability. And that is already comforting to people because we're going to talk a little bit about some data in a minute here. Consistently, people are they're dying for it. They're begging for it. You should limit me telling home stories too much, but I'm always connecting, we're holistic people in our work life and our home life. It's all one big thing. I'm just reminded of a story my mom told when I don't know, I don't remember this, but she's told it so much, it's sort of burned in my memory. She's pregnant on the couch, can't move with the third child. I'm like 7. My sister's like 4, and we're just miserable. And we came up to her and we stood next to her on the couch. And I apparently said, "Mom, we need more discipline." And she's like, "That's the last thing I want to do right now." But she's like, "Okay, you want more discipline? You got it." And then, whipped us into shape, whatever. But it sticks with me because I think that's what teams are telling their leaders when they're saying we're not very good at
Mm,
accountability. I think they're saying we need more discipline, we need more enforcement, we need more checking and follow through on the commitments because we're actually here at work to do a good job. We're not here
yeah.
to slough off and to slack. There are people like that, but in general, people go to work to succeed, not to fail.
Yeah, when we talk about the Emma model, for me, one of the frames that we can bring to the conversation is what are the questions that Emma is answering. So setting clear expectations answers the question, what am I supposed to do? And a lot of people are not quite sure, and for lack of sureness, they're going to try. I'll never forget. I don't want to get into expectations too deep, but I will never forget asking a group of about 60 Chinese leaders, what do you do when expectations are not clear? And they said, work harder.
Yeah, wow.
So when they weren't clear, they were just like, put in more hours, do more stuff, and hope that some of it is the right stuff. Now, other people will have a complete different reaction, and different cultures would be like, I'm going to do way less until the expectation is clear, or maybe take a different approach altogether. But I just, what am I supposed to do? Motivations really answers the question: is this as good as it gets?
Yeah,
Can I enjoy my work more than what I enjoy today? And the answer we believe is yes. Of course you can.
yeah,
And then, for me, measurements answers the question: are we winning, or is anybody paying attention? Like if we're measuring, then we know somebody's paying attention. And accountability is super, super powerful because it connects to our 3 C's that we always talk about. Accountability answers the question, and does anybody care?
yeah,
It's not enough for you to track your KPIs. It's not. That answers the question, is anybody paying attention? Well, yes, the KPIs show up on the board or they show up in the system, and there they are. Somebody's paying attention, but does anybody care? And so accountability is this huge step to say we care. And I think that's actually unlocking what is a barrier for most of us in practicing accountability really well, is reframing it as an act of care.
And maybe just if you're new to the show, the 3 C's that JD was referring to there, is we'd say this is the 3 C adaptive core. This is how you remain and continue to be better and better and better versions of yourself. You need all three. You need curiosity, courage, and care. And if you are struggling at your workplace, either with your boss, which is the most common complaint, or with your own team being the boss, if you're struggling with an accountability gap, that's where we would encourage you to look. Which of
Mhm.
those 3 C's do you need to sort of lean into more? Do you need to be more curious? Find out some things that you don't know? Do you need to be more courageous? actually you kind of know what you need to do, but you're not? Or do you need to be more caring, which is I know what I need to know and I'm about to do the thing I need to do. I need to make sure not to derail or unnecessarily harm relationships.
Yeah.
And so the probably everyone listening right now who has an accountability gap on their hands or near their hands, you could pick one of those three C's. We always encourage you to just choose one to focus on first.
Yeah. And even that, where we started with just asking your team how we are doing at accountability can even be an act of curiosity to start the conversation. Albert, I think this is a good spot for us to get a little bit into the data on this.
Sure.
So we'd love for you to kind of summarize why this is so important and what some of the research tells us about accountability.
Well, we were talking last time about Gallup. Sorry, Gallup's the one I want to talk about today. We were talking last time about Hogan's new
Yeah.
data on the five things that people wish their leaders did more, and accountability is in the top five things. People wish their leaders would hold, and they're including themselves in this, hold their teams more accountable. I mean, the
Yeah.
people answering this question are saying, you're going to be lumped into that. Bring it on. They're saying, we want our leaders to hold people accountable, get better at accountability. This is cross-referenced with another study Gallup came out with just a few months ago, where they did, Gallup's always doing really comprehensive, cool data collection. And they've sort of boiled down seven core leadership skills. Everybody has different lists. But what's common to both of them is accountability. What's amazing about accountability in this one is it is the worst rated of the seven. And the the funny thing is that managers rated the leaders. So it's like you're rating your boss. And then they went and they asked the boss, how good are you? And kind of not surprising. People thought they were doing better than their direct reports thought they were doing better. But in all seven categories, they thought they were doing better by like 20% or more, except accountability. Accountability, they sort of had a more sober view. They say, yeah, I'm maybe not doing that very well.
Mm. So the gap between how their direct reports rated them and how they rated themselves was the smallest
It was
for
still
accountability.
it was still 16 percentage points, but it
Okay.
was smaller than the other six. That's right, which was 20 or more.
You know what?
So,
That really
yeah, go
does
ahead.
make me think, Albert. Like, why are people? Because yeah, it's no surprise. I'm sure it's no surprise to any of our listeners to think that bosses, wish that the world was more accountable, wish that people would hold themselves more accountable, wish that others would hold their teams more accountable. It seems like part of that, though, is that there's probably this assumption in there that people don't want me to hold them more accountable. And yet here you are saying that, like, this is one of those things that, so are these people saying, like, we're rating you low on accountability because you're doing it? Or are they saying we want more of this?
They're saying that their managers, or they're saying that their leaders are
Mm.
not exceptional or outstanding at holding everyone responsible for exceptional performance. So they're not doing a good job following through, holding people accountable, holding people responsible. And the other thing that they're saying is, and Gallup has connected the dots for us, there's 30% of people who say, yeah, actually, my manager is good at that. It's this big
Mm.
70% block that isn't. But those 30% who say, because a lot of times we look at the negative, right? Like what's bad
Sure.
about this? Well, let's talk about those 70%. Gallup's also given us a little insight. So those 30% who say their managers are good at holding people accountable are three times more engaged.
Wait, what? Three times.
They're three times as likely to be engaged in their work as the people who say their leaders are not very good at that. So we have to be careful to say, it's the accountability that makes them engaged. It's not necessarily caused by that, but That
This
can't
is
be a coincidence.
pretty strong correlation there. Yeah.
Yeah, it can't be a coincidence. So
Mm,
this is another thing that we say in our performance leadership work, and it's in our book. Say if you want to increase engagement, if you want to increase retention, this is what most people are looking at. Don't think about that. Think about performance. Get people and teams performing better, and then they will be more engaged. They want to stay working at a place where they're winning, where they're succeeding, where they're performing well. And so this, a little bit extrapolating from Gallup's data here, this is sort of supporting our view on that. We're not the only ones who say that, but that is a real core belief of
yeah.
ours, is that by focusing on getting your team performing better, that's actually a very kind, caring thing to do for people. It's making their life better.
I I think it's fair to say that most of our clients that we work with are high performing. Their organizations are doing well. They as individuals are doing well. And what's interesting is that they're leaning into this concept of accountability. They're asking for it in their organizations. They're asking for it as a personal growth step. They're asking for it from their leaders, the people who are leading them. And I think that at least anecdotally for us would be very telling. They want to be pushed. They want to grow. They want to do a great job. They want the business to succeed, the organization to succeed. Uh, I think it's interesting to me to think about, just encourage all of our listeners, think about your personal experience. Um, Accountability gets a bad name for that negative experience. You can think about that leader that you had that maybe one just didn't hold anybody accountable. And I don't know about you, Albert, but I know for me, somebody who wanted to do a good job, fairly high level of being conscientious all through, whether it was school or sports or music or any of the other activities that we were involved in. Uh, I wanted to see, it really hurt when I wanted to give my very best, and the person who was supposed to be the leader was not holding anybody else accountable for their poor effort. And I think this is something that I would say to anybody out there who is afraid to lean in on this topic of accountability. There's so many difficulties. We can get into that in a moment in holding people accountable. So many challenges to us personally, and fears that we even have about our impact on others. But sometimes when we're thinking about accountability, we're thinking about our bad performer or our low performer, and like, how are we going to help that person? And so we don't move into that. But one of the costs that we don't count is the cost to our high performer, because that person is sitting in the room going, do you care at all? We know you see it because you're measuring. Again, it's part of a system. We'll come back to that again too. But we know you're measuring. When I know you're not stupid, you can see that this person is sandbagging or just poor performing or not, like really not fitting in with what we're trying to do here, not contributing to the group, not collaborating, whatever the thing is. And you're not doing anything about it. Sends a very, very powerful demotivating message to your high performers. And I think
Yeah.
that's something that is worth just calling out right at the top. And then vice versa. And then I would love to throw this back to you, Albert, but in the reverse situation where you think back on a leader in your world who was holding people accountable, but was doing that in a way that was painful or felt unfair. I was talking to somebody earlier today about an experience decades ago in their career, and uh, it hurts to get let go. It hurts a lot more to get let go when you didn't see it coming and had no idea what you could do about it.
Yeah.
And there are so many people and so many stories out there. Maybe you even experienced that where, a leader did not look favorably upon your performance or upon how you showed up, but never engaged in that conversation. Again, whether you were actually performing well or not, there's
Yeah.
something that really went missing because they didn't actually start accountability early
Yeah.
and just jumped straight to might not be the place for you, or isn't
So
the
I,
place for you.
yeah, I think there's two important points there. One is listeners, if you're listening today and you want to crank your accountability up one notch, from whatever it's at, I'm maybe a 4 out of 5 holding people accountable, and I want to go up to 4.1. That would be a really great goal. We always encourage um, incremental but really fast steps. So like by the end of today, okay, how about next week? That sort of thing. Um, that will be uncomfortable because you are already doing what is the natural level for you. That's what we all do. That we're all at our sort of the water has sort of leveled out at this point for us. So um, a- a- accountability is notoriously uncomfortable to improve.
Mm.
So don't. So if you're feeling uncomfortable, that is normal.
Yeah.
That's where you need the three C's, either curiosity or courage or care to take that to the next step. The other thing I want to highlight from what JD is saying is please don't do bad accountability. Let's do good accountability. And unfortunately, depending on where you've worked and where you went to school and the kind of home that you grew up in, you may not have had a lot of great examples of accountability done well. And so don't assume that going to whatever the next level of accountability is for you, don't assume that it has to be that bad, yucky, uncomfortable, unfair feeling that you've probably experienced. There are ways to do accountability so well that engagement goes up, like this Gallup study is hinting at. So, JD, why don't you, I don't know, just maybe give us 1 minute on bad accountability. What is accountability done badly look like? You already hinted at it. It's
Mm.
blindsiding. It's out of the blue. It's no warning. That's part of bad accountability.
Yeah, I think one frame that I think is really helpful is uh in clarifying that is, does the response fit the situation? And I think for sometimes, like, what happens is, we get frustrated, we let frustrations build up because we're seeing something that's not right. And then somebody does something like put the stapler on the wrong side of the desk and we lose it. What's a stapler in a digital age? But anyway, we lose it over something like that. And really the experience of the person on the other end of that is this was not proportional.
Yeah.
This didn't fit. Now for you, you saw the whole picture, but then the question becomes, this is a version of bad accountability. How come you didn't say something about that the first time that it happened and the second time that it happened? So now if you've done that, and if this is like, part of that escalation, then maybe it's not bad accountability even to be very, very big about something that is small but has been persistently ignored. But I think that would be the first thing, is like, does it fit the situation? Is there anything that could have or should have been done sooner? Is another judge of bad accountability. And if not, can you step up your response? I'm not saying that you can't get to fire that person today, to make those decisions and start talking to HR about that today. But I am saying that the first words out of that conversation, if it's a new conversation, need to be at a different level than that. And then you might get there if that person, we talk about changing gears.
Yeah.
And so if you've not exercised, those first couple of gears to heat up this conversation for the person, to raise the stakes a little bit, starting at a fairly low level, then there's no reason for you to be at 10th gear. Simultaneously, I would say a lot of people don't even start the conversation for fear that they'll end up at 10th gear.
Yeah.
And what you're really like, the number of times that I've worked with people and looking at this specific performance leadership framework and accountability, saying, "Hey, go have a conversation about that thing." They go and they find they don't even have to get out of first gear or second gear sometimes.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of the time, because it's like finally that conversation is bringing clarity,
Yeah.
it's sometimes the other person on the other side of it is like, "Oh man, I know that's not okay. I need to do this and this and this." And now that conversation very quickly shifted to, "How can I support you to make that change?" You're aligned. Your chairs are. We talk about moving your chair around next to the person. When you can move your chair around, that's great. Now, if you're if it's not in that kind of move your chair around conversation, yeah, you can escalate. And you may need to escalate, and that might be uncomfortable. But a lot of times we're really afraid of nothing. So I moved a little bit away, but I think it's like bad accountability really is both things.
Yeah.
Bad accountability is I'm not responding when I should, and I'm sending a message that I don't care how you do here
Yeah.
to your good and bad performers. And the other is I care more about this than is reasonable,
Yeah.
and people are left saying, I don't know where that came from. My boss is just a jerk, and that's an indication that you need to back up and work your way up through the gears with people.
So maybe just super practically, if you're listening to this today and if you want to hold somebody accountable more, basically what we're saying is start the conversation. Uh,
Mm.
there's this really powerful assumption that a lot of people have, which is I start a conversation, I won't know what to do, I won't know how to get out of it, or I won't know where it
That's
ends.
so true.
I won't know where it ends. I don't know, like, what are they going to say? And this is why we actually practice when we do this work with our clients. We actually
Yeah.
let everybody in the room, like I like to say, feel the muscles of your mouth saying the words so that you gain a
Yeah.
little bit of confidence. And you could practice in the mirror ahead of time, but don't feel pressure that you have to land the plane. I mean, just starting the conversation, kind of getting back to our original thing where you say, how good are we at accountability? It just shows that you care about accountability. And that's a great message to send your team. And you don't, you can just say something as simple as, well, let's pick this up at a later time. It was great to hear your thoughts on this. We'll continue this conversation later, and
Yeah.
no pressure to finish it. But sooner is better than later to start that conversation.
Absolutely. And if we put this in three C's terms, curiosity, courage, and care, the curiosity could be on a team level, like we've talked about, of how are we at this, or really at anything. You could take any part of the Emma system, expectations, motivations, and do that as a team at a team or individual level. But I think if individual is probably the place most of us are afraid to practice accountability
Yeah.
and here's me face to face with Albert, and he's holding me accountable, or I'm holding him accountable. That gets scary. So, you can start the conversation with curiosity, just to be very practical.
Yeah.
Um, hey Albert, I noticed you put the stapler on that side of the desk. Can you tell me about why you did that? That can be a very simple way to start the conversation. Courage may be, you get the answer, and your normal response would be, okay, that's not my favorite, or some kind of passive aggressive statement, and then walk away, still kind of stewing inside about it. Or you could say, Albert, it really bothers me that you do it that way, and here's why. And that would be like one step forward in courage. It's doesn't require a whole long conversation, but just making clear that
Yeah.
something's not okay with you. And some of you may be um comfortable with calling HR, or comfortable with I'm a little concerned kind of language, but can you move into those middle grounds where you're really saying what you really feel a little bit more to your people? And then care, I think, really the way that I would frame that is recognizing that this whole process is really an act of care.
Yeah.
That they did not wake up on their first day of this job thinking I want to do badly. 99 out of 100 people at least did not wake up that way on the first day. Can you wake that back up in them? Can you demonstrate that you're on their side in that journey, and set a high bar? Again, if you think of the people that have been a part of your life as a leader or a coach that have really inspired great performance out of you, they probably asked more from you than you thought you could give, at least a few times. And recognize that act of care that you experience is something that you can share with both your best and worst performers through accountability.
Yeah, it's really good. And I want to second that holding people accountable is an act of care. It is your way of showing that you care about them as people, you care about the work. And just want to add on the courage side, it is, you may want to prepare yourself and have a almost, pre-scripted um, apology ready, because it is very possible you will discover that you need to take responsibility for not holding people accountable better
Mm,
as you get into this process, and say, I want to own the fact that this conversation is 2 months late. And that can take a bit of courage, depending on your
that's
leadership
great.
style.
Yeah.
And so just be ready for that. That's so authentic, and people respond so well to that, in most situations, in most cultures. And so you'll maybe think through a little bit, like that might be the reason why you haven't gone into this, is because it's not, that you kind of dropped the ball with accountability. And so holding yourself accountable in front of your team is to be praised as a highly courageous act.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more with that. And I think it's one of those places where something that feels like you're exposing yourself is actually a sign of strength.
Yeah.
To be able to say that kind of thing in front of one of your direct reports creates a tremendous amount
Yeah.
of safety. Might they be a bit gruff about that in the morning, in the moment? Yeah. But that really is you taking a huge step towards trust, because I promise you they're going to be thinking that anyway.
Yeah.
So you saying it out loud brings it out into the open and says, again, I recognize it. And I would just say then that from there, that needs to be a conversation that is more frequent there for a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm finally bringing it on the table. So let's talk again in 3 days. Let's talk again tomorrow or in a week, and see how we're making progress here, because I want to be more engaged. And if you don't do that as a leader, then that's kind of, again, like measuring. Look, I should have had this conversation 2 months ago. I need to get better at accountability, and then not doing anything about it. That's a real trust breaker. So want to encourage you to, encourage all of our listeners to really, if you ask these questions, make at least a visible change that your people are going to notice and see,
Yeah.
and how you go forward from there.
Yeah, it's good. We're running out of time
Yep.
for this episode. So one thing we do on this show is we are also on a journey, JD and I, and so we ask each other, how's your thinking shifted on this subject as a result of our conversation today?
For me, Albert, I think it's very interesting that the gap between how people rated their boss and how the boss rated themselves was smallest on this topic. And I think it just made me realize that I think most of us, in some cases, were obliviously unself-aware, um, and or oblivious to our own actual experience of our direct reports, their experience. And this is one of those where I think we're aware, and that comes with maybe an extra layer of insecurity around it, and probably something that warrants some thinking and careful treading carefully, I guess I would say, in this space, as opposed to some others which might be safer to enter in boldly.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How about you?
Yeah, I think I was really struck by how much of this topic relates to care,
Hmm.
and how it's genuinely in people's best interest to hold them accountable, to hold the people around them accountable. That's really showing a deep level of care. And I guess the inverse really struck me. Like, if I'm not holding my people accountable, that's probably sending a message that I don't care much about them,
Yeah.
or at least that I care more about something else.
Hmm.
So
That's good right there.
yeah, so that really struck me from this conversation today.
Wonderful.
Well, we should wrap up, and look forward to unpacking more of Emma in future episodes. And thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye for now.